Hi guys. Sorry for the late slide today or lesson today. I tried to summarize for you again the basics that you did in grade 9 EMS and also in grade 10 economics, and especially for those of you who didn't have economics in grade 10. So we're just going back to the basics, looking at what is demand again, what is supply, what does the demand curve looks like, what does the supply curve look like, and then also whenever there's a change in the demand or the change in the supply, what will happen to the curve. Okay, in order for you to understand the complement and the substitute graphs that we already did about demand and supply. So I'm first going to do this basic lesson again today, and then tomorrow I'm going to retouch again on the substitutes and the complements, and to see if you maybe then grasp the concepts better. Okay, so first of all, demand refers to how much the quantity of a product or service is desired by the buyers. The quantity demanded is the amount of a product people are willing to buy at a certain price. The relationship between price and quantity demanded is known as the demand relationship. Then supply represents how much the market can offer. The quantity supplied refers to the amount of a certain good producers are willing to supply when receiving a certain price. The correlation between the price and how much of a good or service is supplied to the market is known as the supply relationship. Then what is a price? Price therefore is a reflection of the supply and demand. So if you will remember from your grade 9 work or grade 10 work, wherever demand and supply curve meet each other, I always say they have a little baby and they call it equilibrium. And that equilibrium forms your quantity and your price in the market. Okay, we're going to look at it graphically now. In other words, how they're represented on the graphs. Okay, my first graph here is my basic demand curve. The reason why I put it like this, normally there will be your zero starting point, okay? But just to show you that it increases to the right hand side. And when it decreases, my quantity decreases to the left hand side. All right, that is important so that you understand the relationship of demand. Okay. When you look at the prices vertically increases upwards and it decreases downwards. All right. But the most important thing for you to know here is the quantity. Whenever the quantity decreases, it will decrease to the left hand side. Whenever the quantity increases, you will see it increases to the right hand side. That's why we'll have a shift in our demand curve to the right if there's an increase, and a shift in our demand curve when there's a decrease in demand. Alright, so this is my basic demand curve. Alright, normally they would have given you a table with the quantity and the price, and that's how they constructed this demand curve. But I'm just using it for reference purposes, just to refer back to our previous work so you understand the basic concept of demand again. Then when we look at our supply curve, again, there's a zero starting point. Basic supply curve, okay? If you look at the figures, would have been figures here at the bottom, the figures would have increased to the right hand side and it will decrease to the left hand side. So it would have been 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, for example. So whenever there's a change in my supply, okay, whenever the supply decreases, my supply curve will shift into the left. Whenever there's an increase in the quantity supply curve will shift down and to the right hand side. Okay, I did an example on that as well, so I'll show you now how it works. Okay, so whenever there's an increase in demand, so first of all, we look at our basic demand curve. That's the red one. We look at our basic supply curve. Wherever they meet each other, we call it equilibrium. Alright, and quantity 1 and P1. P is price, quantity is your Q is your quantity. Now, there's been, and I'd already drawn my original supply curve. There's no change in the supplies, only a change in the demand. So what happened with the demand now is the demand increase. And you must remember the rule about demand increases always to the right hand side. So my shift of the curve will always take place to the right hand side. So it will increase from demand, normally we will call it DD, and it will shift up and to the right to the new demand curve D1. Okay, yeah, I just illustrated it as the new demand. All right, so my demand curve shift up and to the right hand side, new demand. Okay, so in other words, quantity increase from Q1 to Q2, and whenever there's an increase in demand in the market, the price will also increase from P1 to P2. Okay. Once school starts again, we will go through this again, the basic concept, but I just want to try that you already start to grasp this concept so you understand the next work easier. Okay, so this is basically revision work of grade 10 and grade 9 work. So if you're not up to par with it, make sure you watch this video over and over again until you grasp the concept. Okay, remember, increase to the right, decrease to the left. Okay, whenever there's a decrease in demand, here you can see there's my original supply curve, there's my demand curve. Okay, now there was a decrease in demand, so my demand curve will shift down into the left hand side. So there's my new demand curve. You can just draw a new demand curve. All right, and then after that you can do the Q's and the P's. All right, from the points, because wherever they meet, that's equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Right, so on here, in other words, my demand curve shift to the left to the new demand. Normally we will call it again DD, original demand. New demand will be known as D1, D1. Okay, so what happened to my quantity? My quantity decreased from Q1 to Q2. My price, what happened to my price? My price decreased from P1 to P2. Because if there's a decrease in the quantity demanded, the suppliers will lower the prices so that the consumers will demand the product, will buy the product. Think, for example, when Valentine's Day is over, or now we are going into Easter, and let's say Easter weekend is over, and hopefully soon we will be out of quarantine and lockdown. What will happen then now is they are going to decrease the prices of the Easter eggs. That's normally when I buy Easter eggs. I'm waiting for them to decrease the price, put it on 75% off, especially there at Woolies. Okay, right, so what happens then is the consumers don't demand it anymore because it's no longer Easter. So they will just buy it as a normal chocolate. So what they do is they decrease the price a lot so that the quantity can start increasing again in demand. All right. My next slide shows you the decrease in supply. What happens? Decrease in supply, it will always decrease to the left hand side. Because imagine here would have been figures 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So a decrease in supply will shift to the left. It would have been SS shifting to S1. Okay, my original equilibrium, here's my demand curve, here's my supply curve. Also again, make sure you don't swap the two around. You don't swap demand and supply around. Okay, demand, how can I remember that my demand curve looks like this? Okay, easy way is if I draw a D. Okay, meaning this is the back of the D and I'm drawing a little, like a boupains. Okay, a stomach for the D. Alright, so it's lying on his back. Okay, so supply curve is the opposite, so that is my supply curve, my basic demand curve. Okay, if you do swap it around in a test or exam, unfortunately it will be wrong. Okay, so please make sure about that, you get that basics down. So here was my original quantity at Q1 and my original market price at P1. Now there's a decrease in supply. So the new supply means that there will be a new quantity supplied. So decrease from Q1 to Q2. And what's going to happen to my price? Because there's a decrease in supply, what will happen to the price? There at my new point, the price will increase from P1 to P2. So the suppliers can make sure that they will still make their profit. Okay, because now there's less that they have to offer, less to supply. You remember now with this whole coronavirus, a lot of places were out of toilet paper. So obviously what they did was they spike the prices, they rise the prices of toilet paper, so the consumers will start buying less toilet paper. All right, so there's a decrease in the supply, so my supply basically supplies less toilet paper in this example. Let's use toilet paper. So what's going to happen to the price? They increase the price to make sure that a lot of people do not demand now toilet paper. Okay, so that's why they increase the price. It's at a higher price. Okay, because if I normally pay 50 rand for 4 toilet paper rolls, and now all of a sudden they charge me 90 rand for 4 toilet paper rolls, I'm not going to pay that 90 rand. Might move over to one ply even if I don't want to but because it's at a cheaper price. Okay, so that's how the supply works. It still wants to maximize its profit. An increase in supply, again, it will shift to the right. Okay, for demand and supply, an increase will shift to the right, a decrease will shift to the left hand side. Alright, so what happened here again? My normal demand curve, my normal supply curve. So in other words, my quantity was at Q1 and P1, and what happened now? There is an increase in supply. So the quantity supplied will increase from Q1 to Q2. And what will happen to the price? The price will increase from P1 to P2 because the consumers want to maximize their profit. Just show you this little one. He's the one barking the whole time on my PowerPoint slides. Yeah, naughty little one. Okay, all right. So we go on to our next slide. Right, so just to come back again to the basics, I have a supply curve, I have my demand curve, and wherever they meet, they have equilibrium. And from my equilibrium point, that is where I'm going to get my P for price and my Q for quantity. Okay, quantity will always be on your horizontal axis. Price will always be on your vertical axis. Okay, so that doesn't change. So this is your basic demand and supply curve, having an equilibrium point that does not change. But when there's an increase in supply, it will shift to the right. When there's an increase in demand, it will shift to the right. When there's a decrease in demand or decrease in supply, it will shift to the left. So that's the golden rule that you need to remember.